Gaza's unexploded ordnance could take 14 years to clear. Highway collapse kills dozen in southern China. Hello, good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sahi Samshuddin and you're watching World Today. Jordan's foreign ministry said some Israeli settlers attacked two of its humanitarian aid convoys as they made their way toward the Gaza Strip. The convoys were carrying food, flour and other humanitarian aid to the area where the incident happened. The ministry said one of the Jordanian convoys, consisting of 31 trucks, was bound for the Erez crossing into North Gaza and the other, with 48 trucks, was headed for the Karim Abu Salim crossing into southern Gaza. Without giving details of what happened, the ministry said both convoys managed to continue on their journey and reach their destination in war-devastated Gaza.
ولأول مرة اليوم يتم إرسال قافلة مساعدات إلى المعبر الشمالي معبر بيت حانون بعد أن تم تنسيق هذا الجهد وهذا العمل وهذا الاتفاق مع كافة الجهات حتى يتم الدخول من خلال المعبر الشمالي. ولكن مع الأسف اليوم كانت هناك محاولات من كثير من المستوطنين ومن الجانب الإسرائيلي من المواطنين الإسرائيليين بالاعتداء على القافلة ومحاولة منع وصولها من الذهاب إلى المعابر سواء كانت معبر كرم أبو سالم أو معبر بيت حانون، حيث تم الاعتداء على شاحنات المساعدات وبمحاولة تكسيرها وقطع البرابيش المؤدية إلى تماسك الشاحنة.
The Jordanian government condemned the incident and said it held Israeli authorities fully responsible for ensuring the protection of aid convoys and international organizations. Gaza is filled with more debris and rubble than Ukraine, with the mammoth task of clearing it becoming all the more costly and dangerous by the sheer amount of asbestos and exploded ordnance. 6 months into the war between Israel and Hamas, the United Nations Mine Action Service, UNMAS, estimated the amount of debris in the Gaza Strip at 37 million tons in mid-April, or 300 kilograms per square meter. UNMAS said Gaza has more rubble than Ukraine, and to put that in perspective, the Ukrainian front line is nearly 1,000 kilometers long and Gaza is 40 kilometers long. UNMAS, however, said the volume of rubble is not the only problem, as the debris is likely heavily contaminated with unexploded ordnance, and its clearance will be further complicated by other hazards in the rubble. It is generally estimated that 10 to 15% of the munitions fired do not explode on impact and therefore represent a lasting danger for civilian populations. UNMAS has secured $5 million of funding but needs a further $40 million to continue its work of mitigating the threats posed by all types of explosive ordnance in Gaza over the next 12 months. The sector as a whole will need hundreds of millions of US dollars over multiple years in order to make Gaza safe again for the population. Meantime, China said that rivals Palestinian group Hamas and Fatah met in Beijing recently for in-depth and candid talks on promoting intra-Palestinian reconciliation.
双方充分表达了代表日前来京磋商。应中方邀请，巴勒斯坦民族解放运动和伊斯兰抵抗组织代表日前来京磋商，就推进巴内部和解深入坦诚对话。双方充分表达了通过对话协商实现和解的政治意愿，就诸多具体问题进行探讨，并取得积极进展。
China has historically been sympathetic to the Palestinian cause and supportive of a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Beijing has also been calling for an immediate ceasefire since the start of the current Israel-Hamas war in October last year. Israel's offensive has killed at least 34,500 people in the Gaza Strip, mostly women and children. Chinese President Xi Jinping has also called for an international peace conference to resolve the fighting. Colombian President Gustavo Petro said on Wednesday that he will break diplomatic relations with Israel over its actions in Gaza. Petro supporters and workers who marched across downtown Bogota to mark Labor Day also backed the president's reforms.
Por tener un gobierno, por tener un presidente genocida. Creo que hoy la humanidad toda en las calles por millones está de acuerdo con nosotros y nosotros con ella. No puede ser, no puede volver, no pueden llegar las épocas del genocidio, del exterminio de un pueblo entero ante nuestros ojos, ante nuestra pasividad. Si muere Palestina, muere la humanidad. Y no la vamos a dejar morir, como no vamos a dejar morir la humanidad.
The left-wing president has heavily criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and requested to join South Africa's case accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. According to Gaza authorities, Israel's bombardment has reduced much of the enclave to a wasteland since 7 October. According to the United Nations, more than 1 million people face famine after 6 months of war. Police deployed a heavy presence on US university campuses after forcibly clearing away some weeks-long protests against Israel's war with Hamas. Dozens of police cars patrol at the University of California, Los Angeles campus in response to violent clashes overnight when counter-protesters attacked an encampment of pro-Palestinian students. At Columbia University in New York City, which has been the epicenter of the demonstrations, police were on standby after officers marched on to campus late Tuesday to end the protest there. The sight of helmeted police at two of America's most prestigious universities left some students dismayed. At Columbia and the CTU University of New York, where police cleared demonstrators out overnight, some students decried rough and aggressive tactics used by officers. About 300 arrests were made at both universities. Mayor Eric Adams blamed outside agitators for ratcheting up tensions. Students at Columbia, however, have denied that outsiders were involved. Demonstrators have gathered in at least 30 US universities since last month, often erecting tent encampments to protest the soaring death toll from Israel's war in Gaza. US officials announced fresh sanctions aimed at crippling Russia's military and industrial capabilities, punishing companies in China and elsewhere that help Moscow acquire weapons for its war in Ukraine. In a sweeping package announced by the US Treasury Department, Washington targeted nearly 300 entities in Russia, China and other countries accused of supporting President Vladimir Putin's invasion. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the measures will further disrupt and degrade Russia's war efforts by going after its military-industrial base and the evasion networks that help supply it. As part of the measures, the State Department blacklisted additional individuals and companies involved in Moscow's energy, mining and metal sectors. The sanctions also targeted individuals connected to the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who died in a Siberian prison in February. The almost 300 entities included dozens of actors accused of enabling Russia to acquire desperately needed technology and equipment from abroad. Some of those targeted were based in countries such as China that have faced increasing pressure from Washington over support for Russia during its 15-month invasion of Ukraine. A Russian ballistic missile struck a postal depot in the Ukrainian port of Odessa late on Wednesday, injuring at least 14 people and triggering a large fire. It was the third missile attack on the city in as many days. Regional Governor Ole Kieper said one of the injured required hospital treatment. The head of the Nova Poshta Postal and Courier Company, Vladimir Poperishnyuk, said on Facebook that all 18 employees on duty had made their way safely to a bomb shelter before the missile hit a loading section of the depot. Pictures and video posted online showed flames and billowing clouds of smoke engulfing buildings and firefighters straining their hoses on areas still ablaze. Most of the loading area appeared to have been reduced to a shell. Odessa is a frequent target of Russian attacks, and missiles have hit sites in the city over the past 2 days, killing at least 8 people. Many of the attacks since Russia launched its invasion in February 2022 have singled out the city's port infrastructure. Police in Istanbul have used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse protesters who tried to break through a barricade to reach the city's Taksim Square in a defiance of a ban on May Day rallies. Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya said 210 people were arrested on Wednesday. More than 40,000 police were deployed across the city, blocking even small side streets with metal barriers after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on the eve of May Day that the annual protest would not be allowed to take place in the square. Tall metal barriers were put around the square, a traditional focal point of protest in Istanbul. On X, Yerlikaya said that 210 people were detained in Istanbul after failure to heed warnings, attempting to walk to the Taksim Square and attack police officers on Labour and Solidarity Day. Police clashed with demonstrators near City Hall in the Sarkane district, firing tear gas and rubber bullets to stop protesters from breaching barricades. Coming up next, UK begins detaining migrants set to be deported to Rwanda.
Kepelbagaian budaya, agama dan adat masyarakat. Hidup dalam suasana aman dan harmoni. Bagai pelangi mewarnai keindahan alam. Kepelbagaian budaya, identiti negara. Warna-warni budaya dihormati, persamaan diraih. Keamanan dan kemakmuran negara dinikmati.
Kampung kita ni kotor lah tu.
Saya pun sudah sakit perut ni tu.
Kata kita ramai-ramai gotong royong bersihkan kawasan kita.
A highway collapse in southern China has risen to at least 36 as rescue work continued. According to state news agency Xinhua, 30 people were wounded in the incident, adding that the injuries were not life-threatening. Heavy rain caused a stretch of road running from Mezao City towards Dabu County to cave in at around 2:10 a.m. local time on Wednesday. Vehicles careened in a nearly 18-meter-long gash in the tarmac and plummeted down the steep slope below. The highway collapse trapped over 20 vehicles. The death toll was up from 24 people on Wednesday afternoon. The provincial government has mobilized elite specialized forces and gone all out to carry the search and rescue operation. Guangdong, a densely populated industrial powerhouse, has been hit by a string of disasters attributed to extreme weather events in recent weeks. The storms have been much heavier than expected this time of year and have been linked to climate change. With rainfall expected to intensify throughout May, the government has warned of possible further disasters. At least 10 people have died in floods caused by torrential rains in Brazil's south as rescuers search for nearly 24 individuals reported missing. Deluge in the state of Rio Grande do Sul have displaced some 3,300 people in more than 100 municipalities, many of whom have been moved to shelters. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva announced he would visit the area, which Governor Eduardo Leite said was dealing with the worst disaster in the history of the state. Leite said work was continuing to locate the missing even as more heavy rains were forecast. And he appealed for help in the form of people trained for situations of chaos and war. Bad weather has hampered the rescue efforts, often in hard-to-reach places, and the death toll has continued to increase from an initial 5 reported on Tuesday. Persistent rains have destroyed bridges and blocked roads, leaving several communities in the state completely cut off. Officials said tens of thousands of people across Rio Grande do Sul have been left without drinking water, and telephone and internet services were down in at least 60 municipalities. South America's largest country has suffered a string of recent extreme weather events, which experts say are made more likely by climate change. Bangladesh Weather Bureau said that last month was the hottest April on record, with the South Asian nation and much of the region still enduring a suffocating heat wave. The punishing heat last month prompted Bangladesh's government to close schools across the country, keeping an estimated 32 million students at home. Schools in the country will remain closed until Sunday. Bangladesh Meteorological Department senior forecaster Muhammad Abu Kalam Malik said last month was the hottest April in Bangladesh since records began in 1948 in terms of hot days and area coverage in the country. Weather stations around Bangladesh this year recorded average daily maximum temperatures between 2 and 8 degrees hotter than 33.2 degrees Celsius average daily high for April over a 30-year period to 2010. Health Department spokesman Salim Raihan said the government had confirmed at least 11 heat stroke-related deaths in the past 10 days. The severity of heat had been worsened by the absence of the usual pre-monsoon April thunderstorms, which normally cooled the country ahead of summer. Large swathes of South and Southeast Asia are sweltering throughout a heat wave that has topped temperatures records from Myanmar to the Philippines, with the El Nino phenomenon also driving this year's exceptionally warm weather. Authorities are investigating what appears to be a secret mass grave and crematorium in southeastern Mexico City. The prosecutor's office said it has launched an investigation and sent forensic experts to the scene. The police are interviewing witnesses and collecting information from security cameras. Cecilia Flores, who leads the Searching Mothers group in the state of Sonora, posted on social media on Tuesday the discovery of the remains buried in a vacant lot, something fairly rare in the Mexican capital. Flores said the group also found photographs and identification belonging to different people, which were believed to have possibly been the victims. However, as of midday Wednesday, a woman and a child who some of the documents belonged to were found alive, with the first having lost her ID in a robbery and the child having left his in a boat that was discarded. The site, according to the search group, was on the border between Iztapalapa and Tuluak, two crowded boroughs in the capital with high rates of poverty and gang crime. More than 100,000 people have gone missing in Mexico, mostly since the government of then President Felipe Calderón deployed the military to fight drug cartels in 2006. British authorities have started to detain migrants in preparation for them to be sent to Rwanda in the next 9 to 11 weeks, laying the groundwork for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's flagship immigration policy. Parliament last month approved a law that paves the way for sending asylum seekers to Rwanda if they arrive in Britain without permission. Sunak, who is expected to call an election later this year in which illegal migration is likely to feature prominently, wants the first flights to take off in July. Interior Minister James Cleverly said dedicated enforcement teams are working at pace to swiftly detain those who have no right to be in the country. More than 7,500 migrants have arrived in England on small boats from France so far this year. The government says the new law will deter people from making the perilous trip across the Channel. One trade union representing civil servants who may be instructed to help enact the policy said it had launched a legal challenge because its members were potentially being asked to breach international law. Other unions and human rights charities opposed to the policy are expected to launch challenges to stop the flights from taking off after the UK Supreme Court declared the policy unlawful last year. Former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein will be retried in New York, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said in court on Wednesday, a week after the state highest court threw out his 2020 rape conviction. Weinstein appeared in court before Judge Curtis Faber in a wheelchair and a black suit more than 4 years after his conviction was hailed as a milestone for the Me Too movement, in which women accused hundreds of men in entertainment, media, politics and other fields of sexual misconduct. Prosecutor Nicole Bloomberg said there was nothing consensual about Weinstein's conduct as they would be retrying the case. Weinstein, 72, had been serving a 23-year sentence in a prison in upstate Rome, New York. He then was transferred to Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan following last week's order. Faber remanded Weinstein back into custody and said he expected to hold a new trial but did not see a firm date. In February 2020, jurors in Manhattan convicted Weinstein of sexually assaulting former production assistant Miriam Haley in 2006 and of raping aspiring actress Jessica Mann in 2013. They are among more than 80 women who have accused him of sexual misconduct. The conviction included charges of first-degree sexual assault and third-degree rape. Coming up in sports, Fulkrug Rocket gave Dortmund slim advantage over PSG. Malaysia have been drawn against Group B champions Japan in the quarter-finals of the Thomas Cup 2024 in Chengdu, China later today. The last time Malaysia, who made the cut to the quarter-finals as Group D runners-up, played against the 2014 champions was during the last edition held in Bangkok. Malaysia edged Japan 3-2 during the last Group D action 2 years ago. Should the national team overcome Japan, they would have a chance to come up against either host and Group A champions, China or reigning champion come Group C runners-up, India in the semi-finals. In the meantime, Group C champions, 14-time champions Indonesia, will be up against Group A runners-up, South Korea on Friday. Indonesia will take on Denmark in a possible semi-finals tie should the 2016 champions emerge victorious against Group B runners-up Taiwan. The Thomas Cup 2024 semi-finals will be held this Saturday, followed by the final this Sunday. Meantime, Malaysian women's squad signed off from their Uber Cups 2024 duty with a 4-1 win over Australia in the last Group B match at the Chengdu High Tide Zone Sports Centre yesterday. After being rested when Malaysia lost tamely 0-5 to 2018 runner-up Thailand, professional shuttler Goh Jin Wei returned to the squad to replace K. Latshana, while Siti Zulaikha Muhammad Azmi was handed a debut, taking the place of Siti Nur Shuhaini Azman. Malaysia took the lead in the opening games as Jin Wei was clearly too hot to handle for Tiffany Ho by outplaying the Australian 21-6, 21-12. However, Australian main pair and world number 32 duo Setyana Mapasa, Angela Yu equalled the score and stunned the national team when they subdued the scratch pair led by team captain Teo Mei Sing and Goh PT 21-15, 21-17 in 37 minutes. Malaysia's second single Wong Ling Cheng had no problem brushing aside the challenge from Sydney, Tijunadi 21-16, 21-3 in 31 minutes to take back the lead for the country. Second doubles, Ho Li Yi, Tan Xing Yi had to dig deep before they prevailed against Kathleen Ie, Bronya Somerville 21-12, 13-21, 21-10 to extend the lead and confirm the winning point for the national squad. Debutant Siti Zulaikha Muhammad Azmi repaid the trust by the coaching team as she wrapped up the tie for Malaysia by overcoming Isabella Yan 21-10, 21-10. Despite the win, Malaysia still failed to qualify to the last 8 after they lost to Taiwan and Thailand previously. Moving on to football, Borussia Dortmund's Niklas Füllkrug fired in first half goal to seal a 1-0 victory over visitors Paris Saint-Germain in a compelling Champions League semi-final first leg. Nico Schlotterbeck floated a pass into Füllkrug's path, and the Germany forward controlled the ball with a perfect first touch before drilling a low shot past keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma in the 36th minute. Dortmund went close just before half-time with Marcel Sabitzer, but his shot was blocked by Donnarumma. The French side improved after the break and went agonizingly close to an equalizer in the 52nd minute with Kylian Mbappe killing a shot onto the far post, and then Achraf Hakimi also hitting the woodwork on the rebound. 4 minutes later, Fabian Ruiz saw his stooping header sail wide after being left completely unmarked in the box before Dortmund keeper Gregor Kobel kept out of Ousmane Dembele's close-range efforts in the 71st minute. Dortmund winners in 1997 and looking to reach their first final since 2013 soak up the pressure as PSG Vitinha narrowly missed the target 10 minutes later. With the return leg in Paris next Tuesday, the winners of the tie will face either Bayern Munich or Real Madrid. Carlos Alcaraz's bid for a third straight title at the Madrid Open was ended by Andrei Rublev. Russian 7-seed Rublev rallied from a set down in the quarterfinal to win 4-6, 6-3, 6-2 and break Alcaraz's 14-match winning streak in the Spanish capital. The 20-year-old second seed was aiming to become the first player to win 3 consecutive Madrid Open singles titles. After a grueling win against Jan-Lennard Struff that lasted just under 3 hours on Tuesday, Alcaraz struggled to find his best form against Rublev. The two-time Grand Slam champion missed clay court events in Monte Carlo and Barcelona earlier this month due to a right arm injury, and despite taking the opening set, he looked tired against Rublev, who fired home 30 winners. To win ends a 4-match losing streak for Rublev, who has won just one ATP 1000 title in his career. Alcaraz's exit is a further blow to Spain's home hopes in Madrid after 5-time champion Rafael Nadal lost to Jiří Lečeka on Tuesday in what was likely to be the 37-year-old's last appearance at the tournament. Meanwhile, world number 2 Jannik Sinner withdrew from the Madrid Open on Wednesday due to a hip injury, handing a walkover into the semi-final to last 8 opponent Felix Auger-Aliassime. Sinner wrote on X that his hip has been bothering him this week and has slowly been getting more painful. Taking the advice from the doctors, Sinner said he decided it's best to not play further and make it worse. Italian Sinner, 22, who was making his third appearance in Madrid, holds a 28-2 record on this season. He lifted his maiden Grand Slam title at the Australian Open in January before claiming his second Masters 1000 crown in Miami. Sinner is due to play on home ground at the Italian Open in Rome next week before heading for an assault on the French Open, the season's second major, which starts in Paris on 26 May. Sinner had appeared to struggle with a hip problem during his third-round win against Pavel Kotov, and the Italian was not fully recovered against Karen Khachanov when he defeated the Russian in 3 sets on Tuesday. That concludes today's edition of World Today. In our top story, Gaza's 37 million tons of bomb-filled debris could take 14 years to clear. Till then, I'm Sahih Samshuddin. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.